How's it going, everybody? So in this video, I'm going to be reflecting back on all of the lessons I've learned in 2022. So I've had a lot of amazing experiences this past year, and I feel like I've made some major progress in all aspects of my life, including my business and my career with personal training, strength and conditioning, as well as my athletic endeavors. That includes my strength goals, my jujitsu, and also my relationships and my friendships, and pretty much every aspect of my life has definitely taken a major upswing, 100%. And of course, when you have these types of major kind of upswings in certain aspects of life, I mean, obviously, there's so much stuff going on within all of these things. You have no choice but to learn, and obviously with that comes mistakes and obstacles and challenges. And from overcoming those things, if you're like me and you reflect on them, you learn how to prevent them from happening again in the future. And you learn from these mistakes, or you learn from these failures, or you learn from your successes. All of these things provide valuable lessons on what you shouldn't do in the future, and then also what you should do more of. Okay, so everything from herbs, nutrition, from the way I approach, my discussions and communication with other people. Also school, I forgot to mention college, major upswings in that. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I've kind of learned. So the first thing and the major thing is the number one most important thing for you to focus on if you are not getting the results you want in your life is your focus. Okay, so this was an interesting thing. Oftentimes when we run into problems in life, at least us in the health community, the first thing that we start to look at, if we're not feeling as good as we normally do with our mood, or we don't have the health that we want and things, we usually will first look to supplements or look to herbs or dopamine boosting compounds. And secondarily, nutrition and our diet, right? We're like, oh, I'm not sleeping well. I'm feeling depressed and all this other stuff. People will wrongfully start to invest a bunch of money and time and research into new supplements that they think can help them get out of the funk that they're in. For me, I was doing really, really good with all aspects of my life the first 2 months or so of this year. And then I started to feel overwhelmed, and I started to have all these other things, these clouds started to overtake my mind for a while, which is interesting. And on paper, every aspect of my life was actually in a upward direction. I was, making more and more money and getting more and more clients in my personal training career. I was actually doing more and more consulting, health consulting, than I probably ever have. Getting more and more dedicated followers on my YouTube channel. Making more friends and more connections. But in my mind, I was feeling as if I was failing and going downward, which is really interesting. And usually that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. How you choose to perceive whether you're doing good or bad, it's usually your perception and your expectations that precede your external reality. And so, anyways, on paper everything was going good, but for whatever reason I was feeling in a funk. Okay, there's a lot of reasons why I might have been feeling in a funk. And I think the main reason is because I was doing school, and I had to focus a lot on subjects for college that had nothing to do with everything else going on in my life. And I felt like it was a major distraction that was pulling mental resources away from my main objectives. And for me, I'm the type of person that I like to pour all of my mind, all of my heart, all of my energy into one thing at a time. And I am able to make major improvements in an area of my life if I can do that. And I start to have major issues if I allow one thing to pull a lot of my mental energy away. For example, if I am forced to do a history class or something, right? Like Texas history or I don't know, like American history. Even though that stuff is cool and all, it just takes so much of my mental resources knowing I have a deadline for a major essay, or I have to read a whole chapter in a textbook about history of America, when I would much rather be reading the latest meta-analysis on effective training protocols for strength, or the latest meta-analysis on protein's effects on longevity or something. I'd much rather be dissecting scientific studies and things on what I'm actually interested in, or reading a book on how to develop better kind of networking or relationships with clients, or with how can I bring forward improvements on something I really care about. Like, basically, if I'm forced to focus on something I just don't care about, it causes me a lot of mental turmoil. And that was actually a very big realization too, that I'll go into detail some other time. I made videos about when it was happening to me, as I was realizing most people's suffering in their lives comes from focusing on things that they don't like, or that they don't want, or focusing on things they don't care about. And conversely, people who tend to focus most of their time and energy on things that they do care about, that's how they bring about the most positive change, especially in their happiness and their mood. So anyway, the thing is, when I was feeling overwhelmed and I was feeling all these negative emotions and things, I started to invest a lot of money and time into supplements and herbs. So that's the first lesson I learned, is changing your perception, changing your feeling state, and changing your thoughts and how you focus on things is actually the most powerful thing you can do. It's the first thing that you should address if you're feeling like you're in a funk. Herbs are awesome. Herbs can change your energetic state. They can change how you feel about things. So for example, if I take reishi mushroom, it's going to put me into a much more reflective state. It's going to put me into a much more sentimental and internally emotional state, but yet detached a little bit more from the external world. Reishi mushroom is going to bring me into a more downward feeling state, where it calms everything down. It brings all that mental energy downward into the heart, almost, is actually how it feels. Okay, so it's a downward type feeling. Helps you relax, helps you sleep, and makes you feel maybe more prone to sadness and physical emotions, which a lot of people, especially when they're up in their head, need, like myself. And people who are really addicted to stimulants need it the most, but they'll typically be scared of it because it'll make them feel depression that they're usually trying to mask with stimulants and uppers. People, they freak out when they take like rhodiola or reishi, and it makes them feel more depressed, and they're like, oh my God, it's, and hindering my DHT or my testosterone and all this other crap. And the reality is, these people have these feelings are typically addicted to stimulants, and they have ADHD-like tendencies, usually because they have really bad emotional turmoil that they haven't addressed. And reishi kind of forces you to reflect on those things and forces you to feel them so you can overcome them and develop greater wisdom and a better direction towards where you really need to go with your life. And I know that it's these types of people because I was one of them and still am at times. But anyway, so reishi can completely change your feeling state in that way and help you focus in a more productive fashion. But at the same time, there's other herbs Let me think. This can vary depending on the person, but I would say Panax red ginseng, the Asian variety, the proper form, 6-year-old root at least, etc. Just a dried powder. It can bring your mind and your body into an energetic state of upliftment. It can allow you to take on more stressful physical activities as well as mental activities. It can help you endure states of low sleep while also helping you to support you get better sleep. And it can bring your mental energy, your bodily and mental energy upward more. So anyway, Panax red ginseng can completely change your state of being and your energetics to be more upbeat, uplifting, more motivated, more yang. Whereas reishi can make you feel more lower, more yin, more in your body, more reflective, more hibernative. Okay. So anyway, herbs are very, very powerful in that way, and there's countless examples that I can give. And they act differently on different people, so I'm not going to it's not a general thing. But the problem is, it's not so much taking an herb that gives you the answers to all your life's problems. It is what you choose to do with the energy that you're given. And this is the same thing with things like pharmaceutical drugs. This is why the mainstream paradigm kind of doesn't work so well. It's because people are reliant. They think if they change their diet, they think if they change their herbs, they think if they get on a new drug or a new amino acid, a dopamine thing, they think if I fix my testosterone, everything will be better and all this stuff. And they're like, man, I feel horrible. It's probably diet. It's probably a drug. It's probably a neurochemical imbalance and this and that. And those things are very important. If you're not eating enough protein, if you're eating foods that your body's like negatively reacting to, addressing those things are very powerful. If you're just like really anxious all the time, taking an herb like reishi, gynostemma, rhodiola, these can be completely change your state of anxiety. They have for me at least. But the thing is, after a couple weeks, you get used to the feeling of no anxiety, or you get used to the new positive feelings that the herbs or the diet has given you, and you become bored with it. And then the rest of your life is still the same way. And until you start to address all the other problems in your life, the other problems in your life they'll still create the same feelings that they did before you changed the herbs and the nutrition. So earlier in this year, I made videos talking about this, but it was a little bit less, I don't know. It was more geared towards anti-dopamine herbs and anti-testosterone herbs. But the thing is, I was still investing a little bit too much money. I don't want to say how much money I spent on different herbs, but I really went hard experimenting with herbs this year. So the most powerful change that I noticed this year didn't come from herbs, okay? So the most powerful change that I experienced came from writing down specific goals that I have first, especially short-term goals, because they give you something to focus on right now. I want to win a gold medal at this tournament in July or whatever. I want to, earn 15 paid client sessions per week by December. I want, and the thing is, it could be anything in your life that is relating to you, whatever you really want it to be. I want 10,000 subscribers, but or I have 10,000 subscribers by December 2023 or something like that. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter how extreme or how whatever. Okay, the point is to have some general direction in your mind that you know that you're going in. Because for me, the two worst things that really threw me off this year was when I went through a couple months where I didn't have a clear idea of where I was headed. Or, and this is a thing, if let's say that something happens, like you get in a car accident, or I don't know, some crazy financial problem happens to you where you are in a really big financial crisis. I think the biggest reason why that can hurt is the ambiguity. The biggest reason why that's so scary is because an obstacle has now presented itself that is getting into the way of your normal routine, and that kind of makes your future cloudy. You don't know what's going to happen next. And I think for me, and I think that that's like the major key here, is knowing that you are going in a direction and you have a goal set for yourself, and you are confident that you may not be able to get that goal perfectly, right? You may not win the gold medal in July, but you're going to compete and you're going to do your best, and you're probably going to do relatively well, right? But the fact that that's the direction you're going in, it sets the tone for everything leading up to it. It changes how you're going to structure your schedule each day. It changes how you're going to approach your training, your relationships, and everything else. Or, 15 paid client sessions a week at my job or whatever, by December. It's like it's not the goal. This is the thing people don't understand. Okay? The most important thing is to set a specific goal, but to not be attached to that, to the outcome of that specific goal. And just by moving in the direction of that specific goal, that's going to get you everything you need. That oftentimes may not actually be the goal. It's just going to set the direction that you go in that brings you the next logical step. The other problem is when people are attached to the path to get there, they run into problems. So let's say, and this is going to sound weird to people because they're always told you need a specific goal, you need to be attached to it, and every day work really hard with the goal in mind, and you need to have a plan. You need to have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, then you're just, whatever. Everything's going to be random and you're not going to reach your goal. That's false. Having a direction is important, okay? Let's just say, for the sake, let's just say I have in my possession $100,000 by December 2022, okay? That's the goal, because everyone can relate to that, obviously. But I don't like that. I don't like money goals. I feel like they're empty and just they're not motivating. Anyway, let's say that's the goal: $100,000 by December. Okay, having a plan is cool and all, but the thing is, just by setting that as your goal, you're going to get pretty close to that goal, most likely. You don't want to set how you're going to get there, because usually obstacles present themselves that change your routines and change your path and change your plan. Sometimes your goal can change entirely. But just by moving on the path with that goal in mind, you're going to get to some place that's way better and way closer to what you really want than where you started with. Okay? And the more that you attach yourself to how that plan is going to unfold, how that goal is going to unfold, oftentimes the more resistance we present ourselves, the more stress and the more overwhelming it feels. And at the end, the plan doesn't really matter. How many times have you heard there's so many different paths to the top of the mountain? There's so many different methods to yield you the same result. I personally have found that $100,000 or a gold medal at a certain tournament, or whatever it might be, is not always the exact goal that you want. And furthermore, I found for sure the more that I attach myself to how it's going to happen, a lot of times just by visualizing it without attaching myself to how it's going to happen, but visualizing how it's going to happen, it happens pretty damn close. Like, I visualized myself winning certain gold medals this year and how it was going to happen and stuff. And just by still allowing the universe to kind of bring me curveballs and being like, okay, it's cool. I don't give a fuck whether it happens the way I planned it out. I'm going to get that goal no matter what. It's the determination that brings you there. But it's interesting because if you let the variations happen and don't attach yourself to the plan or how it's going to happen, it usually manifests very, very close to how you visualized. But when you attach yourself to it, this is the problem. When you're like, I'm going to win this gold medal and it's going to happen with this very specific sequence of techniques, with this move, with these grips, with this takedown, with this submission, then the universe brings you contrasts. And it's like, oh shit, like this doesn't feel the same way I visualized it. I didn't visualize this technique happening, and then it just throws off everything. When your plan does not work out the way you want it to, it can very easily throw you off your game. So, some people do better with a very specific game plan, very specific goals and stuff, but I found that just doesn't happen to me. For me, having a specific goal, a specific end result in your mind is very, very important in all aspects. But the rigidity, the attachment, how serious you make the goal, putting your goal on a pedestal, and then even worse, being really attached to how it's going to happen is detrimental to actual real-world results. That's what I found. Okay? And so anyway, but that's the most important thing is having a goal that sets a tone for everything, and then investing all of your time and energy into enjoying the process along that goal. I think that's the winning key. Especially, you can call it whatever you want. Law of attraction, you can call it, power versus force, because there's books that's written on it. You can call it flow, which is another way of looking at it. There's different kind of ways of navigating success to the path of your goals that involves focusing on more ease and finding the most direct path to your goal versus focusing on gliding down the stream to the goal versus running upstream to the goal. You can reach your goal no matter what if you suffer enough, if you try enough. And there will always be challenges, but you can make it as easy or as hard as you want. And I found that this is the way it is, okay? So anyway, herbs and stuff are great, but if your focus is all fucked up, then there's nothing you can do to really get that success. So, yeah. So, anyway, it's interesting. I still did pretty good despite all that. I won silver at IBJJF. I won gold in convincing fashion and, at Grappling Industries. I mean, that was incredible to me because everyone is 15 pounds heavier than me. I cut a shit ton of weight for that tournament. It was my first time just going balls to wall and I had 4 matches back to back. That was no easy task. And after I won, it's funny because I felt, at first I was really proud of myself, but then I kind of felt like it's just a white belt tournament. These people are all in their 30s. And I started to talk down on my accomplishment and not feel proud of it. But I think that is just other people who, they don't feel proud of their accomplishments and they don't have like a winning mindset. I think the winning mindset is you should feel proud and you should look at it realistically, but you should always, strive for greater challenges every time. So anyway, yeah, that's that. School, I did great. I got like B's at a minimum, and I got a couple A's. So that's good. I mean, I felt so overwhelmed by college, so overwhelmed by school. The only reason I felt overwhelmed is because I didn't give a fuck about the shit that I was learning. I didn't care about the classes I was learning. And so it just felt like a really big chore. And the thing is, I took a public speaking class, and I'm a naturally great public speaker. But it really hurt me because the public speaking class was very homogenized. It was very just unnatural, and it was kind of like I really something that really disgusts me about humans in society is that they're looking for everything's scripted. I don't like that. Well, anyway, the public speaking class made me follow a script. It had to be organized based on an introduction, transitions, and all this other crap. I don't like when everybody follows the same script. It ruins the authenticity of something, the soul. It ruins the soul of something, the emotions. And I find, and when people they try really hard to be successful by being fake, by fitting themselves into a box. I just find that is a cause of a lot of people's suffering and a lot of people's problems with depression and anxiety, because they think that there's some magic formula they have to fit into in order to achieve the validation and the success, trying to force a square peg into a round hole where it doesn't belong. The biggest problem I think people have is they try to force themselves into places in life that they just don't fit, and then they just assume that there's some black sheep and all this stuff, and then they take on different gender pronouns that don't actually that don't make any sense for whatever their real desire in life actually is, and doesn't really have any relevance to it. And don't get me started on all that. They go on this crazy straight path far and away from what they really want in life. And in reality, it's just when they're, learning about society and stuff, they thought that there is this magic formula that is required to fit in to a place where they just simply aren't compatible. But anyway, yeah. So freaking public speaking just really exemplified that to me, that class. Because I'm like, man, most of the people that I watch and that I listen to them because they're authentic. I listen to them because they aren't following any script. They're creating a script that's unique to themselves. And I learned this about marketing this year, is that there's two methods of success. Either you can be really, really good at the subject or the niche or the script that is already saturated. Everyone else is following the same script, and they're doing, the same diet, like everyone in the carnivore community, and you can fit into the carnivore diet tribe and just be the best carnivore diet person, be the best at that subject or the best at that script. Or you could just create a completely different diet paradigm or completely different script altogether, and now you're pioneering your own field that no one else is a part of. And so those are two different methods of success. Create your own script and pioneer that script. A good example in health and nutrition would be Dr. Ray Peat. I mean, a lot of his concepts have been talked about in other fields, but he really did create something that was uniquely his own. And his ideas were very complicated. The science and evidence were very complicated. And he was very contrarian. So people might like what he says in his information because he's contrarian and he's a rebel, and not even understand the things he's saying or whatever, read the studies or whatever. But in general, he created his own script that a lot of people have been following, and it's interesting how someone like Ray Peat and his advice can get so much popularity when it's such a what would be the word? Such an esoteric approach with esoteric information that the vast majority of humans, or health enthusiasts, like you actually listen to his reasoning behind a lot of the things, and you read his research, the research papers he cites and things. And you read his articles, because a lot of people, they don't actually read his articles. They're just like, oh, PUFAs are bad, sugar is good, and you need sugar for your metabolism and this and that. But they don't actually read the research. The research in which it's found upon is a very complicated thing that's pieced together in a very intricate way, which is why I've criticized his information in the past, really. And also because a lot of his followers just oversimplify it to the point where it's not, yeah. But anyway, he's a great example of, for one, my entire approach to YouTube that I actually started to become very popular. My videos and subscriber count, view count, the amount of messages and people that messaged me to get health consulting started to become very high when I started to focus entirely on the script that I want to write. Instead of trying to resonate with everyone else, I started to build my own, instead of trying to fit everyone else's box, everyone else's compatibility, trying to fit my YouTube videos into, the successful script. Like, this is a script you want to follow to be successful. When I'm just like, I don't care about all that. I'm just making videos to get my own stuff out there. I'm making my own brand, focusing on building my own brand and promoting and advocating my own ideas and principles and doing it the way that I want. Like, other people would comment on my videos and be like, hey, you should maybe, fit the script and do this and that. But what I noticed is the more that I stopped caring about that, the more subscribers I got, the more views I got, the more comments I got, the more praise I got. And even more so, I've noticed, it's weird because, like, I never really looked at my content as something that a lot of people could get into. I've always just really assumed that people are going to listen to my stuff after a couple minutes and get bored because I'm just going on and talking, and I'm not time efficient or whatever, don't have timestamps, and people just going to think I'm rambling about random shit. And I always assume, the average person has really low attention span. But that is a exemplification of the law of assumption, Neville Goddard, and self-fulfilling prophecies, because in reality, I have had people come up to me in real life, people that go to, certain places that I'm a part of and talk about videos I've made. Like, hey man, I follow your YouTube channel. I love your content, this and that. I've learned this from that. I've learned, about this nutrition protocol from that and that. And your videos really helped me and all this other stuff. And some people I've never talked to before that are in certain, communities I'm a part of in my local scene. And they're like, yeah, I listened to your video and what do you think about this? And I'm like, and basically I'm surprised. I'm like, oh shit, I've never talked to this person before, and yet they know me because they listen to my YouTube content. And people talk about me that I'm not aware of and talk about my YouTube stuff. And so lots of people that I would have never expected watch my YouTube channel actually do. So what I'm trying to get at here is that, it's very depressing and it's very overwhelming, and it just steals my energy when I'm overly focused on trying to fit in. I'm overly focused on trying to, be something I'm not, create content in ways I don't really like. And just trying to appeal to audiences I just don't vibe with. And I think this is something I started to really, really understand back in when I first started healing. Okay, 2014, 2015. When I overcame my, psoriasis and all that, sure. But really when I overcame my bout with panic disorder, social anxiety and all that shit. And when I did that experiment where I just stopped dressing nice at all, stopped, for a while showering because I wanted to heal my skin and my hair. And when I washed my skin and my hair, it just got worse. Psoriasis got bad. And I know that sounds disgusting, but that was a long time ago, y'all. I shower now, but I started to realize, like, girls still dated me. Girls still liked me. And in fact, people started to like me more when I didn't give a fuck about my appearance, when I didn't give a fuck about how other people are interpreting me. And I just focused on being me and getting in where I fit it in. And I almost want to cry right now because this resonates with me so much, and I think this is a missing key. And that's another thing I noticed this year is the more that you come into alignment with where you really need to be, the more you focus on resonance, the more your kind of like center lights up. What a lot of these hippy dippy, kind of what I would say schizophrenic people's, overly spiritual people kind of get into this idea of chakras. I don't like that because that gets in line with the wrong crowd. You know, it takes you to some places where you develop really bad habits of health and things. But I know it sounds crazy, but that is actually what I feel. And I think that law of attraction gurus like Abraham Hicks have it right. Where it's about aligning yourself with Thoth, you know, or like your inner being, you know, and shit like that. Coming in alignment with your inner being and all this. If you don't watch law of attraction videos, you don't watch Abraham Hicks, because people get really addicted to that shit, and they never actually produce any real results in life, because all day, every day, when they have free time, they're focused. They're just like they're not focusing on coming into alignment. They're just watching videos and mentally masturbating. But when you actually start to focus on alignment and focus on what resonates with you and focus on what you want and focus on your goals and things, everything starts to come into place, and you can feel it inside of you. You can feel this, like, your center line lighting up. Your chakras start to line up. You know, whatever the fuck that shit really is, you start to feel it. But anyway, yeah, so when I start to talk about these things, and that's one of the reasons why I really make videos, is because making videos helps me sort out my thoughts, and making videos brings me into alignment. And this is really just my form of catharsis. And in the process, other people generally find great insights from me just kind of getting into a flow state and speaking to a camera. So, and there's a really good YouTube channel named Joseph Rodriguez. And he's like a successful entrepreneur who started making videos with his kind of notes and stuff and insights into some of these like mental magic and, you know, these types of videos and stuff. The, you know, magic of success principles. He does a lot of book reviews and stuff, but and he's talked about flow states and how they are very powerful for kind of getting you it's like the easy path to success almost. Because they bring you into alignment and everything kind of starts to flow to you naturally that's in alignment with your main goals. But anyway, so I think herbs are important, and I know for a fact nutrition's important too. But I think when you're in a funk, a lot of times it's not that your diet's off. It's not that you haven't watched enough Abraham Hicks videos. It's not that, you know, you haven't watched enough Sam Ingram or Tim Grimes or whoever else you follow. Joseph Murphy, Neville Goddard, Wolfgang Lozana. It's a lot of time, and, you know, again, herbs can help. Like when I started taking holy basil, and for a while ashwagandha, like back in 2014, 2015. When I started working with L-theanine and some other amino acids, when I started to experiment with certain herbs, mostly shin boosting herbs, things that calm you down, I started to naturally be able to reflect on life. But the key is that the herbs just help you get into the right energetic state. After you've gotten herbs that get you to feel where you want, then you can start to focus on life in a more productive fashion. The most powerful thing you can do, though, is get your mind right, get your energy right, get your focus right. You don't need herbs to do that. And I think focusing on herbs, you know, what you're doing is you're like, I'm not fine now. I'm not successful right now. I don't feel good right now. Something's wrong with me. I need to find out how to fix myself. I need an herb to fix me. I need a different diet to fix me. And again, those things are important. But if you've been doing that and you've been spending all this money on herbs and you've been looking for all the answers on how to fix yourself, after a couple months, if you're not getting success with something, and I mean you stick to something, because a lot of people, they'll just be trying a new diet every week and they'll never stay consistent enough with one thing to see results. Like people will go on a carnivore diet for 4 days and they'll fall off and start eating rice and quinoa and all this other shit. Like, well, I tried the carnivore diet, it didn't work for me. Or, well, I'm on the meat diet, but I'm eating rice and pretzels and shit. And it's like, no, you're not on a carnivore diet. You never tried a carnivore diet. You need to try a carnivore diet long enough for you to notice a difference, just so you can know for sure, is it these plant foods that are hurting me? And re-add certain plant foods one at a time so you can find out which specific group of plant foods. Is it nightshade vegetables? Is it the tubers and the potatoes? Is it the grains? Is it the beans? You know? So, yeah, experiment and try one thing for a long time. You know, or like you try reishi, you know, someone's like, oh, I tried rhodiola. Didn't work for me. It made me depressed. It's like, okay, how long did you try it? 2 days, but it made me too depressed, so I didn't stick with it. Like, what the fuck, man? You don't know, you know, like, you're supposed to take it for a while before the effects set in. Maybe try a different dose, but people are too neurotic for that. Anyway, what you focus on is what matters. So here's another thing I notice is the more that you focus on, you know, what's not working in society and what's not working in general, and so you start to focus on other people's neuroticism. I know that I got to a point the last couple months really where I started making videos about what's, you know, like people in society are dumb and ignorant and weak and all this crap, and you know, people, they have limiting beliefs and all this stuff, and I've been focusing on what I don't like in other people, what I don't want in other people. And I think that there's power in that. I think, you know, I don't think law of attraction is just about pretending like nothing bad exists or whatever. I think it's about focusing on things in a way that's empowering. And I think sometimes when you start to notice what's not working in other people, it helps you to bring clarity on what can work for yourself. And, you know, let's say you're going through life and you really start to notice, man, like, you know, these people who are asking for donations for this cancer industry is really bothering me because they're all fat and unhealthy and they don't understand that, you know, they're offering free candy. And it's like that sugar is directly feeding cancer cells, according to Professor Thomas Seyfried, you know, the Otto Warburg theory of cancer. And these people don't recognize it, and it bugs me, you know? And I think that it can be empowering when you start to realize, like, how asleep other people are. A lot of people in law of attraction communities are like, no, just ignore it, don't think about it, don't reflect on it. But for me, a lot of the most powerful things in overcoming certain things that were preventing me from using law of attraction and beliefs effectively has come from realizing how asleep other people are, because a lot of people don't believe in law of attraction. A lot of people don't believe that if you change your thoughts, you change your reality, because everyone around them is so stuck in limiting beliefs. Everyone around them is so stuck in negative thought patterns that they're continuously thinking negative thoughts, believing negative things, and creating their own suffering and their own disease and misery over and over again, and never recognizing what they're doing that is causing it. And so if you're always around people who are in a cycle of thinking negativity, thinking limiting beliefs, and creating negative things themselves, those people are going to give you the false perception that law of attraction doesn't work and that you are a victim of your environment. Okay? And even worse is if you bring up law of attraction to them, they're going to tell you that you're full of shit. They're going to tell you that, you know, whatever hand you're dealt in life, you know, you're going to have to roll with it, and, you know, life sucks and all this shit. You have to understand that most people are just projecting their limiting beliefs onto you. Most people are, you know, like I've heard it from myself. I'm like doing really good, and I'm, you know, preaching the merits of injury prevention through strength training to people, and saying, hey, as you get older, strength training is more important to prevent you from dying of traumatic injuries. And other people are like, oh, that strength training stuff's going to get you injured. Take it from me. Like, you may not feel it yet. You're still young. You're 31 years old. But I'm 39 years old. I'm way older than you. And I'm telling you right now, like, you're just tearing up your body, and injuries are inevitable. And you may not feel it right now because you're still young, but when you get to my age, you'll know what it is. And basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to justify to themselves why I have a completely opposite belief than them. They can't just admit, oh, Wolfgang, he might be doing something right, and that's why he's never gotten injured, okay? Just because he's 31 years old doesn't mean that, he's too young to be injured or too old to be healthy or whatever, but he might have found something that works. No, they can't accept that. So instead they try to tell themselves, oh, he's not old enough yet. Or they'll say, oh, it's just he's got good genetics, or he's lucky. And that is the same limiting beliefs that you'll hear in people like, people are trying to get better relationships. People that are mad at women, okay? I've made videos about that this year too. There's people out there who will say, women just want a provider, okay? If you're not making enough money, if you're not trying to take care of women, if you don't have enough money, then girls aren't going to like you, okay? And then they'll point out every man who has a good relationship with a good woman and be like, he only has that woman in his life because he's rich or whatever. And then when you point out how they're wrong or why they're wrong, they'll say stupid shit like, oh, well, of course you think that because you grew up with a single mother household. People told me that. And it's like, and I'm like, well, actually, no, I had a dad all my life. So, they try to project these excuses onto your contradiction to their belief. And they try to reaffirm their confirmation bias as to why life is fit into this weird suffering paradigm that they have. They're like, no, I have to fit into this box and everything else has to fit into my box. Otherwise, my world doesn't make sense. They're like, no, I have, you have to be, extremely handsome and successful and a provider to women. Otherwise, you can't get a good woman. It's like, no, actually, that's not true, man. There's things that you don't see. And, so, yeah. The same thing goes with everything else. People will say, in order for you to get strong in strength training, you have to train to failure, and then if I'm like, no, actually, I've been training with 2 reps in tank for a long time, then they're like, oh, well, that's just, there's something else that's going on, and, what I'm saying is still true, and the fact of the matter is, if you reflect on other people and their ignorance and other people and their limiting beliefs, and if you reflect on other people being asleep or being sick or whatever it is, being ignorant, being weak, as long as you don't dwell on that and you use it in an empowering way, it can move you forward into letting go of things that no longer serve you. To where now I'm like, yeah, I honestly don't care what these other people say. Like back in the day, I might engage in conversation with them, and I might even try to convince them that they might be wrong, or I might allow them to influence me. And it can be a thought virus, a victim mentality, where now I'm like, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. It's just inevitable to get injured as you get older, so I might as well accept it. Or yeah, depression is, you can't control your thoughts, people will say. You can't control your emotions. If you're depressed, man, it's a disease, man. I'm doomed for life. I got to take medications and just accept the fact that I'm never going to get better, which I know absolutely is false because of all the mental, issues that doctors told me were severe that I overcame when I was younger. But instead, if I'm like, no, that sucks that you believe that, but that is your own personal reality that you're constantly trying to reinforce, and that's why you get the results that you do. I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to not do what you do. If you're getting the opposite results that I want to get, then I'm going to do the opposite of what you do. And so that's why it's empowering to figure that out. But, the thing is, it can consume you, it can make you angry, it can make you upset. It can guide you down the wrong path. And so the more hostile, the more cynical, the more resentful you become, really the farther you go away from what you want and the more it distracts you from your goals. So, and yeah, it just kind of fucks up your stress response. So In conclusion, this entire video, basically, it's the fact that what you need to focus on is, like, what you want to do to become successful is create specific goals and don't be too attached to how those goals are going to come into fruition. And understand that that goal might not happen exactly the way you want it to. But just assume that life is going to take you there. And really enjoy the journey, get into a flow state. Focus on enjoying the journey as much as possible, and then eventually the end result will be fulfilling enough. You may not be able to get exactly what you want, but you'll get something damn near close. And that's good enough, because it's the enjoyment in life that you're looking for. It's the satisfaction of the pure infiniteness of life. It's the love, it's the appreciation that you want. So focus on the love, focus on appreciation, focus on the journey, and try not to beat yourself up too much, man. Because overwhelmment and stress and being too attached to the specifics of reality, I think, are oftentimes what bring us backwards. And it's like, a big thing is like, no matter how anxious you feel, no matter how overwhelmed you feel over reaching a goal, that's not going to actually help you. What benefit does anxiety serve? What benefit does being attached serve? As long as you're on the journey towards that, as long as you're taking action towards your goal, it doesn't matter how attached or anxious you feel. And in fact, if anything, the more at ease you feel, the more you enjoy the journey, while you take action, the better the result you're going to get. So I'm going to leave on that note. Let me know what you think in the comments. I made a lot of videos just like this one where I just go on this free-floating thing, and I start with a very big concept I want to make a video on, but then I stop myself. I'm like, no one's going to watch this video, and I just lose interest, and I stop recording, and I don't post it. And that's why a lot of time has gone by without videos being posted, because I've fallen into the trap of assuming people don't care, and assuming that my videos aren't good. And I want y'all to know that it's the assumption and the self-fulfilling prophecy and the belief in yourself that matters the most. I kind of want to cry saying that, because I keep forgetting that. But every time I remember, man, believe in yourself. It's the assumption. And don't try to believe in yourself. That's another thing. People are like, they pretend like they have this confidence that doesn't exist. Just act as if it's going to happen, and be okay with it not happening. But if you never post your video, then you'll never be able to see the evidence. If you never go to training, you'll never be able to give yourself the possibility of reaching that goal, the opportunity of reaching that medal. If you never go to your job or apply to that new job or whatever, you're never going to get the money that you want, or whatever it is. If you never ask a girl out, if you never make the move, if you never create conversation with the girl, you're never going to be able to make her your girlfriend. Whatever the fuck it is, you have your goal, man. You need to move towards your goal and have fun doing it. I'm going to make a specific video about this now. Because now I guess I went general, and now I got the specific. Now I can focus specifically. That's an Abraham Hicks thing. She has a technique, by the way, called the Rampage of Appreciation. And basically the whole thing with Abraham Hicks is talking yourself into the filling state and the vibration of what it is you want to accomplish. And I think I realize now that that's the main thing with my videos, is as I'm talking myself through it, I start feeling kind of weird. I lack clarity and all this stuff. And then as I continue, I start to get more clarity. I start to move closer towards the vibration of what I want to accomplish. And then I leave the video feeling more in alignment. So focus on alignment is the thing here. Leave your question, comments down below, and I'll talk to y'all next time.